Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost, and on this channel we're talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing from narcissistic abuse. And I want you to know that on this channel I take a multi-dimensional approach, which means that I shift your energy, right? My videos are healing, there is a transmission going on, and if you work with me privately or in my program Sovereign, you're going to get energetic shifts. My work works faster. People heal more than they've ever healed when they come into my world, because I take a very different approach, right? And we're working energy first. And so if you're watching this video on boundaries and you think, I know about boundaries, I've heard about it before, hear me out, because I'll be able to shift this for you so quickly, right? So the topic today is setting boundaries with narcissists, right? As many of you will know, if you're accustomed to narcissism and being around narcissists will constantly push and erode your boundaries, right? So here's the piece I want you to take away. If you hear nothing else from me today, this is the piece. Boundaries are for you, not for them. I'm going to explain that. So remember this piece. Boundaries are for me, not for other people. They're my protection. They're my emotional safety. Now, what a boundary is not is a threat. Sometimes people think they're setting boundaries because they say, if you carry on doing this, then I won't blah, 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 right? But a boundary is not a threat, it's a deal breaker. So a boundary is a statement, and I'm going to get into how you can set good boundaries, with a consequence. So what does that look like? It looks like, say you're shouting at me, right? I will say, if you continue to shout at me, I will put the phone down, or I am going to go for a walk. Yeah, I will not engage in shouting. It's a statement with a consequence. Now, the consequence doesn't have to be, and again, with boundaries, you want to be in integrity, right? So don't set one that you can't keep. Don't say, well, if you say this to me again, I'll never speak to you again, if you're not going to withhold it. Remember, a strong boundary is a parameter you hold for your emotional safety and well-being that you are willing to stand by. The more you make threats that you don't live by, right, which we've all done, we've all said, right, I won't talk to you anymore if you carry on like this, or something like that. But the more you don't see it as a deal breaker for you with a consequence that you're happy with, and just use it as something that you're spurting out there, the easier it is for the narcissist or anyone to keep eroding your boundaries, right? Because I don't mean it. So when I set a boundary, I mean it. Right? I've given an example in my program Sovereign about a friend of mine, and she was always late, and I've been waiting 45, 50 minutes for her sometimes to meet up. And her story was that she was always late. And one day I set a boundary and said, you know what? I love seeing you. I love meeting up with you, and I would hate for our friendship to end. However, I don't know if you're aware, but you're always so late for me. If you can't make it on time, I will not be able to meet up with you anymore. It's just eating up too much of my time, and I hate being left on my own waiting around for you, right? But I only set it when I was at a point where if she was late again, I wouldn't meet up with her again, right? We wouldn't be able to meet. So a boundary is a deal breaker. It's a statement with a consequence that you'll live by, and it's there for your emotional safety and well-being. Yeah? It's where you're going to take an action. So a boundary, remember nothing else from this, a boundary is for me and not them. So many people think boundaries are about being in defense mode and, about the other person. The boundary is my standard. And when I know I get to live my standards, my boundaries, my values, right, I'm very strong in my authentic power and truth. Yeah? So a boundary is for me and not them. And it's worth giving some thought to them. If you run a business like I do, then it's worth me knowing, if a client defaults, what's my stance? What's my boundary? At what point do I end a contract? At what point, boundaries are important for our daily lives, but they're not threats. And where most people are going wrong, because a narcissist will do everything they can to try and exploit your boundaries. Why? Because it wears you down. Right? It wears you down, and it erodes your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your sense of self, right? So they can start manipulating you and molding you into what they want you to be rather than who you really are. Now, in my program Sovereign, we also do a lot of work on values and standards. Values are things like I value trust, I value honesty, I value kindness, I value patience, whatever we value in relationships. And standards are well, in my work, what I teach are kind of ideals, you know. So an ideal for me is working towards more intimate conversations or more connected conversations, or, you know, things that I'm striving towards. It's not a deal breaker for me, but I want to communicate powerfully to people that this is really what I'm looking for to achieve in my relationships, in my communications, in things like that. I do a lot of deep work on this, and it's something that we're not taught. We should be taught emotional intelligence at school, but we're not. So it's worth coming into Sovereign and doing this deep work on yourself, getting strong in your values, getting strong in who you are, getting strong in knowing how to powerfully communicate to people in beautiful ways. One of the things I love teaching people is communication. It's how to powerfully communicate, which means not just shout at someone or say, oh, I don't accept that, you know, but actually explain why, give people a chance to step up and meet you where you want to be met, and having, you know, appropriate consequences that you can deliver in beautiful ways that don't sound like a threat, that don't sound like an argument, that, you know, because if we get overly defensive with people, so say we were dealing with a non-narcissist and trying to set a boundary, we can get very defensive and say, you don't invite. So for example, with that example I gave of my friend always being late, what I could have said is, you don't value me, you don't respect my time. This is what so many of us will do because we get triggered, right? You don't value my time, you're always late for me, I don't want to see you anymore. I could have said that, but I didn't. What I said was actually my desire first, which was, I really love our friendship and I love seeing you, because that was true. I don't want to lose that, but if you can, I'm not going to meet you anymore. I'm going to leave next time you're late. I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to wait for you anymore when you're late. I won't be able to meet up with you. I'll come and meet you, and if you're late, I'm going to leave after 10 minutes. Right? But I started it with my desire. My desire was for our friendship to continue and for us to respect each other's time. What I didn't do, because I regulated myself, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. I've had my triggers, and I've not always been great at doing this, because it's very hard when we're not emotionally regulated. So a lot of what I teach in Sovereign is emotional regulation. You know, but when I can have a powerful conversation like that, one, she knows I value her. Two, I'm not taking it personally, right? I'm not making assumptions and accusing her and getting her back up, which would get her on the defense about her, why she's not meeting me. Three, I'm explaining my boundary and I'm telling her the consequence that would happen if I didn't get that met, right? That's a powerful way to communicate. Now, I teach my clients all the time to use I language in relationships, right? Rather than say, you do this and you do that, which is what a lot of us do, which automatically creates conflict. So I teach a lot on diffusing statements. If you subscribe to my mailing list at elliefrost.com, I've got a PDF on how to diffuse, you know, good communication tools to use with narcissists. So do subscribe to my mailing list, because I'm going to be resending that out. But it's like, if I use I feel so upset when you're late, because I really don't like waiting around, and I really feel like my time is valuable, and I just really spoils us. It really spoils the connection, you know, that I'm always waiting around for you. But when I use I language, I'm not accusing you or making assumptions about where you're coming from, because my friend could just have always been late for everyone and not really thought much about it, right? Doesn't mean she didn't value my time. It meant that she didn't value being on time. There's a difference, right? So rather than accusing and making assumptions, I use I language. And that's what I use to set my boundaries, you know. I don't like shouting. So while we're still heated in this conversation, I'm going to go for a walk. When you're not shouting, I'll come back and address this with you. So I don't leave someone if we're in the middle of a conversation that needs to be had. But if it gets, you know, very conflicty and very angry, then I'm going to leave the conversation and we'll come back to it when we're both calmed down. Right? I feel this is getting out of hand. So I language is very powerful, and it doesn't create conflict in the way as if you make accusations like you did this and you should do that. Christmas, I've got special offers. They're limited, guys, right? I don't usually offer a payment plan for Sovereign because it's quite a risk for me. People will honor their agreements, but I do believe you will. I've got 2 payment plans on the program. It's a $555 course, which is worth its weight in gold. It's like the cost of 2 therapy sessions, and you're getting like a 6, well, I keep adding to it, but there's 6 modules in it, and there's monthly Q&As. There's 2 payment plan offers, and if you email me at ellie@elliefrost.com, you can choose one, but it's limited time. One's $55 a month for 10 months, one's $111 for 5 months, right? It's the same price, but it depends if you want to spread it over 10 or 5 months. I also coach people, and I have done for years, on coming into their purpose, into their authentic truth, monetizing who they are and what they love, right? And I'm running a 3-month private coaching container, right, for people to make 2025 their best year yet, right? And if you want to talk to me about that, email me and I will tell you what that, we'll have a call and see if it's a good fit. That is not just for healing from narcissistic abuse. That's about really like achieving your goals in your relationships, in your love life, in your money, in your business or work, right? Really going to the next level in life. 3 months one-on-one with me. That's like so much fun. So if you're interested in those, please email me. Thank you for being here. Sending you lots of festive cheer, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon.